stepping in
spectacular,
as well.
over the top. I mean, that was a full force shot to the temple. I mean, he's right now. So they wipe off his gloves, but you look at him like he's really feeling it right now. I mean, he probably has no idea where he is.
When I'm going to take your soul, and you're either going to give up or you're going to get knocked out. And unless you have that instinct, you just will never be a good fighter.
Likely that one big shot's going to land if the guy's not throwing other shots. So I thought with less artillery in the air, less bombs in the air, that the guy would have a chance to get to later rounds.
Joe Rogan laughed while discussing Jake Paul's knockout defeat, joined by Anthony Joshua, saying the matchup was never competitive to begin with. Rogan pointed out that Jake typically competes against retired boxers or MMA fighters, not an active, world-class heavyweight with an Olympic background. He emphasized that Joshua operates at an elite level and competes in a weight class far beyond Jake's natural range. From a serious boxing standpoint, Rogan explained that the ending was predictable well before the fight started, and the final result only matched what most experts expected.
Well, realistically, it's one of the craziest propositions of all time. You take a guy who just had a boxing match that looks like a sparring match with a 58-year-old Mike Tyson, and then you're going to fight one of the absolute scariest knockout artists in the heavy.
Following the bout, Anthony Joshua delivered a blunt post-fight message, saying the knockout may have actually spared Jake Paul. He explained that if the match had gone on longer, the pressure would have worn Jake down both mentally and physically. According to Joshua, ending it early likely stopped the fight from becoming far more damaging in the ring.
Fighting's not just physical, it's psychological. And when you understand the psychological warfare, I did say to you that, Jake, what's going to happen? I'm going to see a time when I'm going to take your soul, and you're either going to give up or you're going to get knocked out. And unless you have that instinct...
Talk of Anthony Joshua being connected to a so-called circus fight with Jake Paul has sharply split opinions within the boxing world. Many view it as pure spectacle rather than a serious sporting matchup, pointing to the massive gap in size, experience, and credentials. Joshua is a former two-time heavyweight champion and Olympic gold medalist, while Jake Paul is still developing as a boxer. To critics, the pairing feels designed for attention and viewership rather than genuine competition, which is why it's often dismissed as entertainment instead of a real fight. After Joshua knocks out Jake Paul and breaks his jaw, Simon Jordan responds forcefully, arguing that events like this hurt the sport's credibility and undermine boxing's integrity.
Industry, because straight after the fight, I heard the question being posed to Joshua, will he now fight Fury? And then my first thought was, after what I've seen, who cares? After that, who cares if Joshua fights Fury? I like Anthony Joshua immensely, Spencer. Any exchanges I've had with him, I think he comes across terrifically well. But I fail to see where it's taken us, where it's taken him, other than hugely increasing his bank balance. You know, I really fail to see what this has done.
Well, it's done nothing, but he was going to fight in November, like I said, and he's just gone in there against Jake Paul. What has it done for his legacy? Absolutely zero. But it was, you know, he's earned a lot of money doing that. And he's going to go again, and he's going to fight possibly February, March, and then there's that Tyson Fury fight that's looming that could happen in September, whether Tyson Fury decides to come out of retirement or not come out of retirement. For Anthony Joshua, he's earned a hell of a lot of money. This is prize fighting, and that's what it's all about. And that's what he's done. And
he contends that matchups like this confuse entertainment with true sport and pull focus away from fights that actually matter. Jordan points out that Joshua has already secured lasting wealth and a legacy in boxing, leaving no real need to chase gimmick bouts. Even if a long-awaited fight with Tyson Fury never materializes, Jordan suggests Joshua's financial position means stepping away from the sport would be entirely understandable.
Earning more than Joshua. That apart, Spencer, 6 rounds to get Paul out of there. Reputationally, how does it leave AJ?
Well, thankfully, it didn't go to points, because I think that would have been a disaster for Anthony Joshua. I think that he needed to get the job done inside the distance, you know, and he done it. Like, he could have done it at any given point. I think that he could have cut the ring off whenever he wanted to and got Jake Paul out of there. He took his time on that. He allowed Jake Paul to run around like a rabbit and throw the occasional shot from time to time. And I think he only landed one clean punch, didn't he, Anthony Joshua? And that was the one that broke his jaw in 2 places.
But, I mean, you said, did you not, to us in this very studio the other day, he's got to get him out of there in round 1.
I did.
Otherwise, what are we seeing?
Exactly that. And I think what we saw there was a little bit of entertainment. And that was pretty much it, but not entertainment that many people enjoyed, if I'm honest. I think that people wanted to see a demolition job.
Joe Rogan spoke highly of Anthony Joshua, pointing to his quickness, athletic build, and explosive power. He noted that Joshua moves with the agility of a much smaller fighter while possessing the kind of punching strength that can end a bout in a single moment. Rogan described him as a dangerous opponent due to how fast he can bridge the gap and shut down exchanges. In Rogan's view, those qualities make it unrealistic for crossover fighters to challenge someone of Joshua's caliber in a legitimate contest.
Boxer, but this is a giant Olympic gold medalist heavyweight. I mean, Anthony Joshua is fucking
Here's the
terrifying.
thing that nightmares are made of.
And he's got that one-punch nuclear power. One punch. And
Adam Booth offered a candid assessment, pointing out that Jake Paul did have moments where he caused Anthony Joshua to miss, which Booth saw as noteworthy. He noted improvements in Jake's movement and positioning, saying it showed greater discipline and briefly forced Joshua to reset instead of attacking freely. Booth made it clear this didn't mean Jake was ahead in the fight, but creating even brief hesitation against a top-level heavyweight is significant and reflects progress in Jake's development. Booth went on to explain that making a fighter like Joshua miss isn't a fluke, it requires preparation, timing, and confidence. He credited Jake's footwork and his ability to stay composed under pressure. Still, Booth emphasized that these positives didn't change the overall outcome, as Joshua's skill level, power, and experience ultimately took control once he found his opportunity.
Anthony Joshua and Jake Paul shared a ring. Your takeaways from the 6 rounds that we saw, presuming you watched?
I was impressed with Jake Paul. I thought that, following on from what we're saying, right? A few years ago, he was on Disney as a kid, acting up, and has decided to become a professional fighter. That takes balls, but he's obviously striving to be as good as he can be. You can see that in the way that he moves, the way that he is developed in how he's punching and performing. But to make a 2-time world heavyweight champion that's still live, AJ's still got something about him, to make him miss in such an accomplished manner. All right, so at times he was jumping out and running around, but there were times when he was well in range and still making AJ unable to land a clean, solid shot. He deserves a lot of respect for that. And then the shot that actually finished the fight, that broke his jaw quite badly, didn't put him out. That shot he threw with serious intention has put a lot of professional heavyweights to sleep. He didn't go to sleep. He actually finished on his knees, didn't he? Laughing and spitting blood out of his mouth. So, like they say, it's a special type of crazy and a special type of brave to do it. But I actually, hats off to him, because he showed that he's developing some accomplished little skills in there to look after himself. The size difference is always going to fatigue him.
I know everyone will come with the idea that, AJ should just go in there 1 round and smash him to bits, and that should be it was a big ring, right? Perhaps he could have cut the ring off a bit better, but would I be right in saying that regardless of skill level, if you forget about that with the 2 for a second, if someone is on the back foot on their bike and doing what Jake was doing, it's difficult no matter who you are, no matter the kind of separation in skill level.
It's a big ring, and you've either got to run at him and look like a novice yourself, or just take your time and understand.
After the fight, focus briefly shifted to Logan Paul, who was seen posturing toward Anthony Joshua and speaking about getting payback for his brother. Logan was reported to have shown interest in stepping into the ring with Joshua, but analysts quickly shut down the idea, calling it an even bigger mismatch than Jake's bout. They noted that Jake trains full-time with professional boxing coaches, while Logan doesn't have the same level of dedication or technical ability, making a Joshua matchup extremely one-sided. Further commentary on the situation pushed the idea from spectacle into outright absurdity. Analysts argued that, despite the loss, Jake demonstrated a basic level of legitimacy as a professional boxer. Logan, by contrast, is viewed as far less refined and less committed. The general consensus is that a fight like that would offer no real competition and would only invite more criticism about the direction boxing is heading.
would be more of a mismatch than Jake Paul. You know what I mean? Because at least Jake Paul has taken boxing or has trained with real boxing trainers in real boxes. Whereas Logan Paul, you know, he did that exhibition with Floyd, and Floyd's a little guy. Not saying a little guy can't thump, because Floyd really gave him some two pieces with no sides, right? But at the same time, you take his friend, Floyd's friend, Anthony Joshua, and get hit by him and see what happens. The same thing. Probably worse, because I think Logan, you know, he's a little taller than Jake. And because he's a little taller than Jake, he may think he's a little stronger than Jake. Which I don't know which one's true or not. I don't think it makes a difference. But because he may feel that way, he may want to go in there and try to bang it out with AJ. And if that happens, it's going to be a lot quicker. See, that 6 rounds it took AJ to finally catch Jake. It took that way because Jake was on that bicycle, moving, being elusive, trying to come in and then come out. He tried to do a very poor man's Alexander Usyk, right? And it didn't work for him. Logan ain't going to do that. Logan's going to come in throwing punches and bunches like he did with Floyd, trying to get him in there and, you know, do all this stuff. And what's going to happen as soon as AJ lines him up, sets his punch, he's going to hit Jake and he's going to break Jake down.
Sugashino Mali offered his take on the aftermath by focusing on Jake Paul's mindset going into the fight. He argued that the confidence and trash talk Jake displayed beforehand were often misread by critics. According to Mali, that self-belief was necessary for Jake to mentally prepare himself to face a 2-time Olympic champion. He explained that confidence and positive self-talk are crucial when stepping into a situation with overwhelming odds, even if the outcome doesn't go your way. Mali added that without that psychological edge, Jake likely wouldn't have been able to function under the pressure at all. In his view, much of the criticism overlooks just how difficult it is to stand across the ring from a fighter of Joshua's level. While the defeat was clear, Mali believes Jake's approach reflected an understanding of the challenge and highlighted the mental demands of competing against an elite heavyweight.
Out in the ring.
Jake was shooting double legs, too.
Shooting double legs, nice
duck
ones
unders.
with ankle picks, duck unders. But dude, God, people I see so much people talking shit on the fight, which, dude, what the fuck did they expect? Like, Jake was hyping himself up, saying he's gonna win. Dude, that's self-belief. He needed that to go in. He needed that to get himself into the ring. You know what I'm saying? He just needed that.
What do you think about the sticking that's hung out?
Dude, he's a showman. This is a fucking YouTuber that switched to pro boxing.
Yep.
And he's fighting Anthony fucking Joshua.
He's
he made $90 million, $7.5 million per minute. Nate Diaz says that boy don't work hard enough. This girl in the UFC said Jake Paul shot more double legs in boxing match than I did in my UFC career. Ryan Garcia said he's a runner, he's a track star. Aljamain said this is a clown show. Josh Hammond said, dude, it's like, what did they expect? They expect him to go in there and look like a clean fucking Floyd versus Manny Pacquiao. Two of the, you know what I mean? It's like, what the fuck?
You see the aftermath, like his jaw and everything? Fuck.
Jake Paul's broken jaw. Jake has to get wired shut for 7 days or something like that.
Yeah, like
Tim
titanium
had to do
plates.
7 weeks.
Yeah, Tim says that was the worst thing he's ever gone through.
7 weeks. Tim broke his jaw in Montana. Tried to go to the hospital. Hospital said the surgeon's out of town. So now he has to. So he's fucking goes like a week without even getting surgery. At least Jake was able to probably get it like next day, that same day. But it's like all the people hating on Jake. It's crazy. Connor said Jake is stupid and will be altered permanently from this bout. I look at it. It's inspiring seeing what he does because I know how much like he's putting in work. He's doing legitimate fight camps. He's doing sparring. He's doing rounds. He's eating. He's doing everything.
Teddy Atlas explained that his expectation of the fight lasting a few rounds was grounded in genuine boxing considerations, not any belief that the bout was staged. He pointed to Anthony Joshua's extended time away from the ring, the knockout loss in his previous fight, and the natural hesitation that can linger afterward. Atlas noted that those mental hurdles don't disappear instantly, especially for a fighter who typically takes time to settle into a fight. He also highlighted the larger ring, which allowed Jake Paul more space to move and avoid early danger. Atlas believed Jake entered the fight with a legitimate strategy centered on mobility and conditioning. However, once the intensity rose, the situation changed. Atlas said Jake reached unfamiliar territory both mentally and physically, as Joshua's pressure, Jake's heavily muscled physique leading to quicker fatigue, and the demands of elite-level competition combined to wear him down. Atlas was clear in his conclusion that the contest was authentic and decided by real boxing factors, not theatrics.
Go rounds. I wasn't sure if there was going to be a silent agreement. I wasn't sure there was going to be a sparring match agreement that will spar for a while. I wasn't sure. I was honest about it. That's why I said it's going to go rounds. I wasn't sure if there was an understanding that, we'll play a little bit and then we'll get a little more and, whatever. So that was part of it. But there was real parts. Say, that's the fixed part. That's the WWE part. That's where the people, and I'm with you. I get it if you want to think that. Here's why I picked rounds, and this is what I think I saw, and I know that in my mind I saw, was the factors that a lot of people didn't think about. 15 months off. And there was going to be some ruts. There was going to be some hesitation. There was going to be some time. He got knocked out by Dubois freaking 15 months ago. There were going to be ghosts and addicts. I don't care who you're fighting. You get in the ring again. It's going to take a minute to exercise those ghosts. The rust. You want to call it rust, whatever. It's going to take 5-6 rounds to get rid of the rust. But it's going to, the doubt, the self-doubt, the being in the ring for the first time with nothing in between after being knocked out. That was going to be a play. And then the size of the ring, 22 by 20. It's usually 20 is pretty usually around average. And it's 22 by 20. More room to elude, more room to move around, right? I thought maybe go in there with track shoes.
Chris Algieri and Pauli Malignaggi offered a blunt assessment of the fight, highlighting just how badly things went for Jake Paul. They noted that Jake endured significant damage, including a jaw broken in 2 places and lost teeth, yet still failed to gain respect from the boxing audience. Chris argued that fans were left unimpressed because Jake never fully committed to fighting. In his view, going on the offensive, even if it risked an earlier knockout, would have earned him more respect. He compared it to the Ngannou fight, where competitors earn credibility by actively trying to win. Pauli added that Jake's hit-and-run approach was unsustainable. Constant movement drains energy, especially in a large ring, and only postpones the inevitable. He pointed out that Jake lacks the skill to move and box effectively at the same time. As a beginner, a fighter typically has to choose between actively fighting or focusing on defense, not both. Jake opted for survival, and both analysts agreed that decision likely damaged his reputation with boxing fans more than an early knockout would have.
Yeah, an Ngannou type fight. Yeah, Ngannou, he's got balls. Ngannou's got balls, man. He went out there and he tried to fight, tried to win. Jake Paul didn't try to win at any point during the fight. He was just trying to survive. I think that's actually ultimately going to hurt him with boxing fans.
What do you think, Paulie? I mean, you talked about the in and out kind of style, kind of hits and runs, and you said that A, it runs out your legs. He was exhausted a couple rounds into the fight, and B, it only saved him for so long.
He doesn't have the boxing skills to box on the move anyway. Once I saw the big ring, I knew he was going to run for his life. When you're that much of a novice, which obviously it's not even an insult to him, it's just lack of experience, but when you're that much of a novice, you either know how to run for your life or fight all out. You don't have that in between yet. You haven't developed enough of that in between boxing acumen to really pull that off. And so what ends up happening? You're either going to fight your ass off and you'll last a minute. Chris, you're being generous. Round 2, he would have got knocked down round 1 if he would have fought. But at least he would have fought. He would have got the respect of the people and more importantly, the boxing community instead of these clowns that follow him and are still defending him. Now what happens is you didn't get any respect as a fighter. You didn't get any respect as a fighter because you didn't try to fight at all. If he would have, I was watching that through 2-3 rounds. I'm thinking to myself, this guy would do this for 8 rounds if he can. If he can do this for 8 rounds, absolutely not fight at all, absolutely not engage a single time in 8 rounds, he will actually do this. And he'll do it shamelessly. And that's the problem. That's the problem. The shamelessness of his approach to the fight. You're going to be a fighter. Then don't make an ass out of the whole sport, out of the whole business, and out of yourself first and foremost. Because in the end, what happens? You got his jaw broke anyway. So what ends up happening? What's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to get hurt? You're going to get knocked out? You got hurt and you got knocked out anyway, but you just prolonged the inevitable and you got no respect out of it now because nobody's respecting that kind of performance. Nobody's respecting a performance where you were totally content to steal money from everyone.
In the end, the outcome felt almost predictable, a mismatch on paper that unfolded exactly as expected in the ring. Anthony Joshua's combination of size, speed, and one-punch knockout power proved decisive. Meanwhile, Jake Paul displayed glimpses of progress, heart, and defensive skills that show his learning, though he's not yet ready to compete with an elite Olympic-level heavyweight. The aftermath highlights two contrasting perspectives. Critics see crossover fights like this as a spectacle that undermines boxing's credibility, while supporters acknowledge the mental strength required to face a true challenge. Regardless of opinion, the fight reinforced a basic boxing principle that experts consistently emphasize: class, experience, and power determine the outcome. That wraps up today's video. Stay tuned for more. Until next time.